Hello, everybody, and welcome to our calendar year. My name is Kevin Wilhelm. I am the president and co-founder of Marketing for ACPs. If you're new to us, we are a digital marketing agency in the eye care industry, and I am so excited to be joined with my co-host today, really the lead facilitator of this webinar, Alex Paisley. Alex is our director of digital marketing and automation and SEO and everything, kind of all of our marketing services, and his teams roll into Alex. To kick us off, while we let people join, I wanted to, Alex, welcome you to this, but also ask you about something you accomplished last year. It blew my mind. You ran a 100-mile race. What did you participate in last year?
It was a cool format. It's called the Backyarder, last man standing. So everyone that's in the race loses automatically. Basically, you got to run 6.7 kilometers every hour, and you restart that loop on the hour, and you just go for as long as you can. And so, yeah, I somehow managed to keep going for 16 hours. It was fun, challenging, hard, all the things.
So you ran for 16 hours with minimal breaks at the end of every 6.5 kilometers.
Yeah, and then thankfully you gave me the day off work the next day, so I could go and sleep and all that. Yeah,
that's good. Wow. Well, you are a better man than I, and really excited to do this. I mean, we're going to talk digital trends and opportunities. It's a great time of year. I know a lot of people are digging into their marketing programs for the year. This is a live webinar, and so if you are watching this, please use the Q&A feature. I'm going to be monitoring that and answering questions either live or I can be typing, so please use them. Alex, let's dive in. Let's really talk about those. I mean, really to kick us off, I think when we talk trends and opportunities, it can all really be bucketed into 3 categories, right?
Yeah, so basically what we wanted to go through today is kind of looking at where marketing's at, but really looking at where marketing's going, and boiling it down, there's really 3 core shifts that we're seeing in the industry that are shaping the future in a big way. And so these are really important topics that we wanted to go through and touch on, just to help educate everyone on sort of what's happening, and it helps to paint the picture of what's coming too. So the 3 shifts that are happening in the industry right now, AI. I mean, I don't know if I can go a single day without hearing the words ChatGPT or AI. It's definitely buzzing on all fronts. But there's also a content revolution happening, and there's a big shift in how we're consuming content as well as how we're creating content. And the other big piece which is happening is the privacy and ethical considerations around all of this, because as the industry accelerates at lightning speed, we're also scrambling to, I guess the legal community is scrambling to keep up with the privacy and ethical considerations of what's actually happening.
Let's dive right in. Let's talk about really the world of digital.
Yeah, so and like before we dive into the first trend, I think the first thing is just outlining the digital market and kind of where we're at right now in the industry. It's kind of crazy. So in 2022, the average person was spending about 6 hours and 43 minutes online every single day. When you do the math, that's 45% of our wake time spent online. And this has actually plateaued in the last couple of years. So 2023, same trend where it sort of plateaued since 2021. But the fact is we're still spending the majority of our time online. Seeing it plateau is showing that we're being a little bit more choosy and picky in terms of what types of content that we're consuming. But at the end of the day, the important takeaway here is that like your patients, they have access to all the information everywhere all at once. And so the tough thing is they're also expecting you as a practice to be everywhere all at once to get the information that they need. That's a big ask and a big expectation, but it's the world we live in now. The big thing here is, I mean, up until I think the last couple of years, there's always been the debate of like digital marketing versus traditional. And I've heard this question being asked so many times of, like, what's your uptake on digital marketing? Like, what are you doing for digital marketing? Are you doing digital marketing? And a lot of times that answer can be yes or no. But really based on like seeing the market and how much time is spent online, it's just the question's changed. It's not digital marketing versus traditional marketing. It's just marketing now. And that's just the world we live in.
Do you find that when you talk about digital versus traditional, I mean, those are still options that are available to practice owners. How important is it to still look at traditional options, meaning out of home, potentially direct mail, signage, things like that, versus focusing a lot of their budget in the digital world? I know it's everywhere, it's omni-channel, but how important is it to look at traditional versus digital when they're putting together their marketing plan?
Yeah, and I think it depends on your area and your locale. I think that the important thing is that digital is just so ingrained in the marketing strategy that I've never seen a scenario where digital should not be part of that strategy, right? It is part of marketing now. But what's interesting is even on the traditional fronts from how we've thought about it, like in terms of billboards or signage, even a lot of that, I mean, we've seen it adjust to like digital billboards and digital signage where even that is now digital, and that is accessing digital platforms as well for out of home, connected TV, where traditionally used to be having a commercial on TV, but that's all digital placements now too, based on targeted audiences. So even traditional is changing and becoming digital now in this world. So I think it's still something that should be considered. But even just like how we're thinking about those traditional channels needs to shift to have that digital lens on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's nowhere else we're spending 6.5 hours, our time on. So if we're spending that time online, it makes sense that we need to start there and then just sort of build a strong foundation and then kind of go.
Yeah, even the interesting thing too is like, I mean, often we've thought about like, oh, we need a commercial on TV. But even TV and cable, how we think about it, I mean, YouTube is double the streaming hours that versus like any other streaming platform. And that's just on a TV. So if we sit down on a couch and we turn on our TV, YouTube still has double the streaming hours as any other streaming platform online. And so even just from like an ad consumption perspective, how we're viewing ads on a television is still very much digitally focused. And YouTube is a big platform of that.
Yeah, I mean, we had a question come in just asking about do people notice a digital billboard versus static billboard? I'll take that one. I think our eyes are drawn to the change in the digital billboard. However, with a static billboard, you get 100% of the impressions, and with digital, it is switching, and usually you'll be between 6 or 12 different ads that rotate in and out. So while you do get the initial notice with your eyes changing, you're sharing it. And so you're getting far less overall impressions. But the benefit with digital is you can change the message. You can contact that company and change it for, it's a lot more cost, it's a lot easier to manage your costs. It's easier to change your messaging. And you can be in more places with the same budget. You don't have to put one billboard in one place. You can spread it out. So benefits of both, but I think the notice initially, but less impressions overall.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's way more flexible for sure. Another important piece in terms of where we're at now in the market, if we look at the standard customer journey funnel, so these are the stages that a normal patient or a customer or client will go through in order to make their decision or to actually make a purchase or to book an appointment. And so the first stage of being aware, this is a lot of times like, if they have dry eye, but they don't even know that there's rubbing their eyes at this point. They're not even aware that they have a condition. And so it's knowing and understanding that 60% of your audience potentially has that condition, but they're not actually aware that they have it, or they're just becoming aware. And so the tactic is just, educating them on potentially having an issue. And then 20% of our audience is sitting in the interest phase. So they're now aware that they have this condition, this issue, and now they're doing a ton of research into how to solve this problem, this issue. And then the next phase is then they move into the decision phase of, okay, I know I have this issue. I know a solution. I know I have to book an appointment or go see an optometrist. So now I'm going to start searching for optometrists in my area to make that decision. And then the action is actually going through and booking that appointment or creating that action. But the important takeaway is understanding that only 3% of your available market is actually sitting in this action phase, ready to book an appointment because they've already gone through these steps. And so if we're not targeting them or we're not in front of them during that initial awareness phase of them rubbing their eyes and starting to look up on Google, hey, why am I rubbing my eyes a lot? We're not getting in front of them at that point in time and nurturing them through to that action. And so a lot of times we go through and we just think that, oh, well, our addressable audience in our geographic radius is X, therefore I should be booking X number of appointments. But it's making sure that we are helping to nurture them through that entire journey, because there's only 3% of our audience is actually in this action phase.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's really important here because I want to take a minute, for the clients on the call that are working with our account managers, you might have heard about digital display advertising or paid social media ads and really wondering like, why, do I need to do that? And, in this industry, even the most compliant patients you'll see every 2 years. And so if you think about the action phase, you might have a prospective patient that had an eye exam 3, 4, 6 months ago. Maybe they didn't have a great experience, but they're not actively looking today. They know they don't need it today. They don't need glasses today. It's not top of mind. And so advertising, creating that awareness is really about that next opportunity for an appointment. And so why we do advertising, why we're out in the market trying to put your brand and your message in front of those people is for 18 months from now or 20 months from now, when they actually, okay, it's time to make another buying decision. They know they're not going back to their previous provider or they've moved, but they're currently not looking. And so advertising isn't for today. Being on search engines is for today. It's for those 3% of people that are actively looking and saying, okay, I want to make a decision. All the advertising and everything else we do is really to fill the gaps and make sure that you're building this funnel specifically. So just wanted to make a point of that as we move forward.
Yeah, that's bang on. So now diving into, the first sort of shift, AI. Obviously we're talking about it a lot right now. At least I know we are on our end every day. And AI is a big core shift that we're seeing and a big part of marketing. An important note here though is that
just before we go, can you just explain a little bit, like we use AI a lot for, let's, pretend I've never heard of it. Tell me what it is. What does it actually mean when you say AI?
Yeah, perfect segue. So AI, when we hear about it right now in the last year, we've heard a lot about like ChatGPT, if that's a word that you're familiar with. And that's called generative AI. And so that's what's really been taking off in the last year. That's based on large language models, but effectively what that means is I can have a conversation with an AI and I can almost not discern that it's a human or an AI. It's very hard to tell now because these models are so good. But previous to generative AI really coming on the market in 2023, we've been using AI for a long time. Like this isn't a new thing. This is something that we're using in many different ways, from like marketing mix modeling to like ad placements and ad algorithms, bidding algorithms, smart bidding, data analytics. AI has been part of like in a lot of different aspects of marketing, social media too, but really the thing that has been kind of blowing up in the last year is the generative AI piece.
Yeah, one of the things that just to kind of go back a little bit is AI is taking the world of information. It's being fed all of this content, and then it is being able to discern and create new insights and actionable things. So one thing that's happening right now in the eye care industry that I'm hearing a lot about are treatment plans, where we have the ability to start uploading patient outcomes and symptoms, and we're going to get to a place where AI has the ability to start laying out treatment plans based on percentages and outcomes, really making the elevation of optometry a little bit easier. So I know that that's being worked on across the board. There's lots of great companies kind of investing in that. And so that's one area beyond just marketing that it actually can help and is going to improve this industry and the ability for you to service patients.
Yeah, absolutely. To dive into sort of a little, like to illustrate, I guess, the generative AI field and just sort of what that technology can do and where it's going. I want to start with a little bit of a quiz for the audience, and just to see kind of from a voting perspective. I don't know if we can do it in the comments or just want to kind of note it on a piece of paper or something at home. But I'm curious if you can tell which of these images is generated with AI, 1, 2, or 3. Kevin, you want to take a guess?
I have sat through this before, Alex, so I'm not going to wreck this for you.
All
But
right.
right now we're getting it seems to be the number one answer is the number 3.
Is AI generated?
Correct.
So it's actually a trick question. All of them are AI generated. All 3. So I generated these with a program called Midjourney. It's a cool platform. It costs about $15-ish a month. So definitely check that out if you get a chance. But I mean, these are generated with obviously some prompts that are very specific to like a group of friends, but the key here is wanting to get pictures of people wearing glasses and basically prompting with text the AI to come up with a picture of a specific type of person, age range, gender, whatever you need, wearing glasses in a certain setting. And these are all possible. And this is sort of where generative AI is at from an image perspective. These look like real people. Like, it's crazy to me that these aren't real people. Like, they don't exist in real life. So from a person perspective, it's really good. There are a lot of strengths to this. It does still have its limitations. And so this is playing with trying to showcase, giving a child, I think I said 6, 7 years old, an eye exam. And this is what AI starts to come up with, where it's seen a lot of images of people receiving eye exam, but in terms of like the technology and the equipment, it tries to generate it from scratch. And so when we're looking for accuracy in certain aspects, it's still very, very hard to do. Same thing with uploading like pictures of people's faces. It wants to generate it from scratch. And so it's actually really hard to completely mimic a person's face in some technologies.
And just for those, we had a couple people ask about the platform, and so
Yeah.
I am taking it here, but it is Midjourney is what it's called.
Midjourney is the one that I use. There is also Dolly through ChatGPT is another one that's available. In terms of like people and realism, Midjourney seems to be the best one on the market right now. Changes every day, but that one's the best one right now. So the question is like, okay, cool. So this is pretty wild and crazy in terms of what we can do with creative and with imagery, but how is it going to change? I mean, the answer is that right now there are platforms like Midjourney and ChatGPT, but we're seeing every platform out there starting to integrate it into their technology. And so it's only going to become more accessible and also easy to use. The important thing is, from a generative perspective, this is the worst that AI is ever going to be. It's only going to get better. And so the limitations that we are seeing from equipment generation, like that's eventually going to go away too, you can only assume.
Alex, can you show that video again? I think it's important. It was quick, and I want to show what it looks like. So somebody goes on the left, they're typing into the prompt, Magical Kingdom, where all your dreams come true. It creates a video. You plop it in here, and all of a sudden the video is happening. And it is pretty incredible what we can do from a marketing perspective, which really allows us to start creating, more targeted, more relevant content more quickly, which really allows us to be more effective overall with marketing.
Yeah, and Canva is actually really cool. And so Canva is a technology, if you're not familiar with it, they are kind of a media-based company. It allows you to create social ads, display ads, basically any kind of like PDFs form, like whatever you want from a graphics perspective. Media makes it very usable, and it's easy to use. And so as an agency, we've actually recently leaned into Canva a lot on our social media side. And so we trying to leverage a lot of these tools as much as we can to generate the best possible creative and graphics we can in the eye care space.
Yeah, so the name we just said was Canva. So it is, you can see it on the screen, Canva. Many people will have a Canva account for their social media. You can create great Instagram images, videos, and upload them. I'm going to do a little bit of a plug. Somebody on Alex's team, our organic social media team, created this amazing new product called our Toolbox, which right now has hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content for this industry. There's videos, there's reels, there's images with captions. And essentially what we can do is take all of those, upload them right directly into your Canva account. We include a premium version, then it brands them for your practice. And so you have access to this branded content, that is searchable by dry eye or by brand or by even just Thanksgiving. And we can create, and you have access to this amazing amount of content. So if you are a client of ours, you've not had an opportunity, it's pretty new, make sure you talk to your account managers about that. And we're going to put an email address at the end if it's something you are interested in learning about. But we do have a new library full of hundreds of social media assets that are tailored for eye care that can be branded for you. So let's show the next thing. I think the next thing is really cool. Yeah, this video.
Yeah, some of you might have seen this already. This is something called a deepfake. So obviously watching this is Morgan Freeman, but is actually not Morgan Freeman. So anyway, we'll watch it and then we'll talk about it.
I am not Morgan Freeman. What you see is not real. Well, at least in contemporary terms, it is not. What if I were to tell you that I am not even a human being? Would you believe me? What is your perception of reality? Is it the ability to capture, process, and make sense of the information our senses receive? If you can see, hear, taste, or smell something, does that make it real? Or is it simply the ability to feel? I would like to welcome you to the era of synthetic reality. Now, what do you see?
Very cool.
Yeah, so every time I watch that, it's always a little bit creepy. Seeing Morgan Freeman look so real and talking to us, but obviously that is not Morgan Freeman. It's a technique known as a deepfake. These have been going around the internet in a higher quantity now with different celebrities. The important thing here is the reason why this company or people can do it with Morgan Freeman is that Morgan Freeman's face is everywhere, his audio is everywhere. So to train an AI on him is actually pretty easy. So we're not really at the stage where to train a deepfake on, myself or Kevin. Might be a little bit easier with Kevin now, but to train a deepfake on people is still a little bit tougher. Although we are entering a world where it will be possible in a relatively short time frame. And there's obviously the creepy dark side of this, which we won't really go down that side of it. I want to kind of highlight some of the really cool opportunities with this, where we're getting to a point where, now when we look at video and stock video and stock photos, having to lean into that versus in the future, being able to actually train an AI to have a video of you allows us to connect with our audience in a different way. Because, if you are in appointments all day long and you don't have time to film that social video or that, that content, to effectively still have yourself in those videos and in those photos, in different contexts, educating your audience, becomes really powerful and it frees up your time.
Alex, we had a question come in about, can't this be used in an evil way? And then what about the optical industry? Could it be used negatively? And the answer is yes. The bottom line is, of course, this can be used in an evil way. I think that it's important just to know what's out there, what's available. And I'm sure that, we're going to get into the ethical side and the privacy side at the end of this, but there are regulations coming. They're trying to keep up. It's hard to keep up with how fast this is being. The private sector is being funded at an incredible rate to create AI tools, and governments just can't keep up in the same way. So it's important to know about them. But yes, of course, it can be used. We haven't seen that yet in this industry for sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's definitely the negative side. Even one thing to watch out for is recent is a lot of spam calls coming in, and there have been companies or scammers out there who will train just the voice, because that's easier, on vocals from just picking up the phone and saying hello and having a short conversation with that scammer, that person, and then using that voice to then call loved ones or people that are close and trying to fake or imitate you. And so advice that I always give is whenever a number that you don't understand is calling, try to limit your vocals to either just hi or nothing at all.
I am not Morgan Freeman.
And also understand what numbers or who's calling you. But apart from the creative side, the other big shift in AI that we're seeing, the generative AI side, is obviously the text-based side. And there's a lot of applications to how we can start generating content within our businesses. But we're looking at trends and how it's going to shape the next year. And one of the big shifts is Google and Bing have both released their generative AIs within their search platform. So Google, as an example, they've launched Bard. Bing has a heavy stake in ChatGPT, and therefore they're integrating that into their platform. Now, sounds cool. What does this mean? Well, this GIF kind of shows it, in that what's happening is we'll ask a question to Google, kind of like a high funnel question, that I want to educate myself. I'm curious. I don't know the answer. And Google will respond with a generative answer. Now, you might have seen these answers pop up in Google, where it is like a pre-canned answer. Up until this point, that section has always been pulled from one website, and it's just basically taking a snippet from the website and pulling it onto the search results page. But what's happening now is Google will actually generate this from like multiple sites or multiple pages and compile this together to give you the best possible answer. From a user experience perspective, I think it's pretty cool, and it will offer a better user experience, but this does change our behavior and how we search. And this is going to be really important to how that changes the industry. Because if you watch this search, if this answer is really good, and as this answer gets better, Google will show you where it got the information from. You can see the read more section. So your website can still show up in that section, but what we're going to see in the next little while is probably fewer that high funnel type of questions coming to Google. Fewer will click through to a website, but potentially get the answer they're looking for within that section. Also, there's generative AIs popping up everywhere, and so making sure that the content on our site is good, but we'll ensure that our information does get pushed to as many places as possible. So I think like the branding aspect is still a real thing, but it changes how we search, because AI is going to help us a lot in terms of getting the answers that we need. The other thing from a search perspective, just really quickly, is Google's been going through a ton of changes. This is kind of a heat map in terms of search volatility, from what websites are showing up on the first page of Google. And so the redder it is, basically what's happening is you might be showing up on the 50th page one day and the first page the next day and the 20th page the next day. So that's what's happening. If it's really red, is there's a lot of change. Blue means that it's not changing as much. So 2017 is where Google really started to lean into basically AI for their algorithms and deploy that. And so that's why it's learning, it's seeing a lot of volatility, it's calming down. But like as we progress into 2022, we're starting to see a lot more volatility as Google basically tries to figure out what delivers the best human experience as technology changes so fast. In 2023 alone, there were 24 core algorithm updates, which impacted a lot. And so from our perspective, our job is to stay on top of all of these algorithm updates. And so when we see the volatility, we can shift strategies to make sure that we're always using the latest strategy that Google wants. But the core of it is that Google is trying to offer the best human experience. And so I think this sort of change isn't going to slow down anytime soon. So we cover this a little bit, but yeah, I mean, this sort of changes the search engine optimization game. And what that means is how you are showing up on Google on that results page. AI is going to be everywhere. Google's rolling it out, Bing is rolling it out. And but even beyond that, like ChatGPT is accessing the internet, and it will start accessing it in real time. And there are 1,000 apps popping up every day that are using large language models. And therefore, the content that is on your site is going to go further than Google and Bing. It's going to start showing up everywhere. And getting recognition for that is important. And so leaning into content and human content is going to be extremely important. The other piece of this too is that hyperlocal SEO will be hyper important. So what that means is picture a scenario where my Google Home, as an example, my Alexa assistant is so good that I'm just asking it, hey, I need to book an eye exam later on this week. I want it to be within a 1 kilometer walking distance. I probably won't even have to say that, but Google or Alexa or whoever it is will then give me maybe 2 or 3 options, and we'll end up booking my appointment. And so making sure that you are optimized locally will be extremely important in order to show up in those recommendations. The other piece is that in the next year with generative AI, there's a ton of content being produced. Google is really trying to sift through the good content versus just the content. AI written content still doesn't rank like 98% of the time. Google won't penalize if it's AI written. Google will still acknowledge that it is content. But the reality is that generative AI is just not written quite as well as humans can write, especially when we're writing specifically for our audience. And so good human written content is still heavily favored at this point in time.
But you can use AI to get you partway, right? Like, you know, if you're using ChatGPT, if you're using, you know, other ones like Jasper, I know there's the ability to get ideas, right? Like generate blog topics, generate the outline for this, and then you can start kind of writing from there. And so you can still use AI to help really get you 90% of the way there. I know that we do internally, we've leaned into relying on AI to be able to generate some ideas, do some research, things like that. And so it's a really good point that it's not favoring AI, Google's not punishing. So you don't want to strictly use that. You still need that human element, but there's definitely tools you can use to help create and get ideas flowing.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry. I just meant having the human touch. And basically what happens is if it's good content, it will stand out in the sea of content that is now being created. And so just that good content becomes so much more important. And AI can absolutely help you get there. Within the content world, AI is also making a big impact on email and communicating through that channel. Up until now, most practices, most businesses are using sort of a simple tokenized personalization. What that means is if I'm writing an email, I might have that piece of code that says, hi, first name, insert first name here. So then that email will read, hi, Jill, and then email to follow. Obviously, we can add other simple personalization within an email, but really sort of where we're going with AI is AI allowing for a more one-to-one meaningful personalization. So writing that content specifically to your patient based on that patient's needs. So thinking about like follow-ups from procedures or following up on maybe it's medication, or if there is sort of a treatment plan in place, AI being able to tailor that message specifically to that person. I mean, eventually getting to the state where it knows your patient better than you know your patient. Email will also is starting to be more heavily integrated into chatbots. Now, again, when we talk about chatbots, we're seeing companies like Expedia lean into this in a big way. And it's really cool seeing the functionality of it in terms of saying like, hey, I want to travel somewhere. Can you help me? And it'll guide you through the whole process. Expedia has a lot of content online, and so training an AI effectively is much more feasible for a company like Expedia. But we're seeing this roll out in all industries now, and so this is changing extremely fast from the ability to create custom GPTs now. And so, yeah, I mean, I think like this is changing fast, but being able to integrate chatbots directly into our patient database will become extremely effective in terms of being able to train a chatbot specifically to our practice.
We had a couple questions just about SEO specifically. It is always a hot topic. It is one of our most well-attended webinars. We did a previous webinar on SEO last year. You can access all of those on our website, our YouTube channel. So definitely you can go back on that one. And I've sent a ping to our marketing team to send me the date of when we think the next one will be, and I'll answer it here when I get that information.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but basically in terms of how we can prepare our practices for this, it's just knowing and understanding that, you know, if we're using the right data and leveraging our data and partnering that with AI. AI will eventually get to a point where it knows our patients better than we do, if you let it. And that can be a very powerful tool to set you apart from a customer experience perspective to just I guess an entire customer journey perspective too, from compliance in treatment plans and whatnot as well. Just a few examples in terms of like where you can start leaning into AI now and where we've seen some practices doing this. We've seen it from a patient education perspective. So creating patient handouts to simplify complicated eye conditions. ChatGPT can generate these fairly easily and start to create content on like a lot of different eye conditions and have a lot of content available to your patients. Also crafting appointment reminders. So, again, creating that content can be time consuming and heavy lifting. And so leaning into AI to generate that, as well as using marketing automation to automate that as well. Symptom assessment, pre-screening, we've seen some examples of this where basically either it's, quiz form or just a simple, content that can be generated around pre-screening. I mean, even chatbots to lean into pre-screening as well. Product recommendations from, eyewear to contact lenses and leveraging AI or also generative AI like ChatGPT to come up with product recommendations based on current conditions. And then obviously creating content for post-visit follow-ups. So summarizing treatment plans, you've taken a bunch of notes in the appointment maybe, and at the end of the day, you got to go and send that email out, lean into ChatGPT to start helping you with that. And then patient FAQs. We can start generating a lot of FAQs for our website through ChatGPT.
I can tell you in this industry right now with, typically this industry has sometimes been slow to adopt things. I think it's the opposite right now. We're seeing AI come in a big way. I've had a lot of companies reach out where we've kind of collaborated or worked with a lot of companies regarding everything you're seeing here. So helping opticians find the right frames using AI and using like face shapes and all of that to, you said, treatment plans to even just, finding the right appointment. And I have a provider, not in the optical field, but I'll send a text message and the AI bot will go back and forth and find the next available booking that fits for my schedule. So all of these are either here or coming pretty quickly. And so what I would recommend is just stay pretty tuned in to the technologies that are coming out. We will be updating information here. We'll do future webinars on some of those. And one of the things that we want to do moving forward is also illuminate opportunities with different companies, cool things that people are doing that can help you and your practice. And so we might be bringing on some people and some vendors and some opportunities just so you can learn about these as well.
Yeah, I love it. Another quick cheat sheet, which is attached at the end of this, but screenshot away if you want. This is always an effective way to use ChatGPT to create content and generate content. And the key here is basically telling ChatGPT to act as a specific role. So if you want them to act as the CEO marketer, ChatGPT will take on that responsibility to then develop the task of creating a business plan or content plan, whatever that is. And then basically you can say what you want it to spit out. So do you want it in paragraph format, a summary, a spreadsheet, presentation, and it can start to help you with all of that. And then just a quick bonus tip for prompting ChatGPT, because this is such a hot topic right now and we get a lot of questions on this. This is also one of the most effective ways I've seen ChatGPT use, where whatever you're trying to create, first explain that vision. So whether it is, again, a business plan, a proposal, a treatment plan, you're asking it to create that, but then the next follow-up is you ask ChatGPT to ask you the questions it needs to give the best answer. So say, ask me what you need from me to give me the best answer, and it'll spit out maybe 5-6 questions. Answer those questions fully, but then the key here is don't just ask for now that answer from ChatGPT, but ask for 5 versions of that answer with an explanation as to why it thinks it's a good answer. And therefore, once you do see those 5 answers, you can always ask it to dive deeper into one of those versions.
Yeah,
and this taking me a ton of time.
I'm going to challenge everybody on this call right now to, at the end of this, open up a window, go to ChatGPT. That's not the actual URL, but you will find it. You'll have to create a login. And so you can log in through typically an email account or what have you. But once you're in, you can ask it anything. And so some ideas is you can ask it for staff meeting ideas. We want to focus on patient experience, or what are some tips on how opticians can sell, second pair of frames? Like, ask these questions. What's a fun icebreaker for my staff meeting? What ChatGPT can do is it basically can provide a lot of those. And so you can be a more effective business owner, a more effective leader using that by asking it questions on pretty much any problem that you have to solve.
Love it. And then the last takeaway when it comes to generative AI is that AI is still not factually accurate always. So just check the work. We've seen it happen a lot of times where we'll ask it for a specific medical piece of information, and ChatGPT will just make that up. When we challenge ChatGPT and say, I don't know if that's accurate, can you tell me your source? It'll actually make up an article with the author that it finds, when it doesn't actually exist when you look into it. And so it's very convincing. ChatGPT will always double down on the information it provides, which is kind of frustrating. But we've seen this a lot, especially in the medical industry, when people are just using ChatGPT alone to create content. A lot of times the content isn't factually accurate, which can get us into a lot of trouble. And so that's one of the reasons why we always use sort of that hybrid model, where we are leaning into AI, but we're still making sure that we have human eyes on all the content that we produce.
Yeah, I think the best word is skeptical, right? So we use it as a guideline, and then everything we get back, we're skeptical. We double check, triple check when we're talking facts. But it is really good for idea creation. It's a really good way to kick off a brainstorm.
Yeah. So the second trend that we're seeing, content revolution. Here, I don't think it's a big surprise, but videos taking over the internet. 82% of total internet traffic now comes from video. This stat always blows me away. But it's just how we engage in content now online. It's it, right? So when it comes to that type of content, the biggest shift we've seen is that short form video has just completely rocked the internet. And the reason for this change is, sure, there are apps like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Reels that have changed how we consume that. But the real underlying thing for that is the algorithm that is changed for how we consume content. And what that means is the For You page. If you're not familiar with what a For You page is, basically what it means is up until this point in time, we've been chasing followers and growing our networks on social media. So it's chasing the 2, 3, 4,400 followers, whatever that is, because those were the only people that had access to our information. So it was a social network. We were trying to grow that network, but it's not really a network anymore, because the algorithms are simply showing the content that it thinks is going to be the most engaging for the consumer on the other end of the screen. So what is really cool about this is now if we do have a couple hundred followers, our content isn't limited to those followers. If we're using Reels and YouTube Shorts, our content can go way, way, way beyond those our networks and our current followers. And so that's why we've seen a ton of content just like blow up virally, and it happens at a much, much higher rate. So this is an example in the eye care space of how some doctors are leaning into short form content. Now, again, I'll go through these two, but one of the common themes that you saw in that video, but also with these videos, is that they're not high production videos. This is the big trend that we're seeing. But because it is a person on the other side speaking to the camera, it allows for an emotional connection, and that emotional connection creates a much, much better brand awareness. And so, yeah, it's the ads can be organic, they can be simple, they don't have to be high production, which wasn't the case probably 5 years ago.
When you're an eye doctor, so you perform treatments on yourself. Here are 2 signs you probably have dry eyes. July is Dry Eye Awareness Month, so I'm kicking off a series all about dry eye. Number 1 is the feeling that you constantly have to blink or your eyes feel much better after you do blink. This is because every time you blink, fresh tears are going over the surface of your eye. Number 2 is blurred vision or trouble focusing. The tears that sit on our eye affect how clear our vision is because it affects how light is focused onto the eye. So if you have an unstable tear film, this can definitely cause blurry vision.
So these are really simple videos and very, very quick to create. You know, I like a ring light and a really simple tripod can get you there. So a small investment can go a big way. The other thing is just experiment with a lot of types of content. You might put out one and it only gets 10 likes or something. That's not to be deterred because of that. You know, it's all algorithm based. And so producing and trying with a lot of different types of content to see what works and what sticks and what doesn't. So yeah, we kind of spoke about this, but yeah, just leaning into these platforms and just picking up a phone and start trying some stuff out. Here are some content ideas in terms of maybe what you could focus on just to get you started. So again, quick little screenshot here can go a long way just to get you started. Or like we said before, go to ChatGPT and ask it to come up with a whole bunch of different content ideas. I've even used it to come up with different scripts as well, if you want to go that far. But just generating a couple simple ideas and turn the phone on and start filming will go a long way.
We had a great question. I just want to highlight it. I did put it in the Q&A, but they asked about how to show up in more For You sections more than just tagging and SEO. My answer to that is really being on trend. So what we're noticing is when there's a new trend that launches or there's new features, the algorithms will always reward people that are on trend very quickly. So one of the tips I would give you is on the weekend, when you start and you see new trends happen, bookmark them, film them on a Monday, get them out as fast as you can so that you end up hitting those trend algorithms and you'll start to be shown to more people, especially in your area. They're becoming also more effective at showing locally. So just stay on trend. Don't wait too long to get on those. But these content ideas are great for evergreen content, things that last for a long time. People will go back and see them as well.
Yeah. So yeah, leaning into trends will help a lot from a viral perspective. That is a really, really good tip. If you aren't if you don't have time to always be looking at what the latest trend is and filming immediately, if you can, great, do it. If you can't, my recommendation is still just to lean into what is valuable for your patient, your target audience, because even if it doesn't get picked up immediately, it's still over time that type of content is still gonna win. And so yeah, look to see what's trending if you can, because that will help you get picked up by the algorithm. But again, the second thing is just good, valuable content. So the last trend that we're seeing here is just privacy and ethics. This is kind of the important one, and probably the one that's not spoken about enough. A couple key things to dive into here. The one thing that's coming, this was just rolled out in January. I think the numbers are probably up to like 100 million browsers that Google has now released this on, where it's now blocking or phasing out third-party cookies. What does this mean? I mean, it's a big shift to the advertising world, but effectively, up until this point, marketers were very effectively able to go and chase people around the internet to ensure that they did become aware of your brand, but also then converted on your brand and follow them through the entire funnel and the entire journey. With this being phased out, I mean, when we think about Google and Facebook, they have so much data on us, it actually doesn't really affect them all that much just because they know us so well from, I mean, when we drive, where we're driving, Google Maps, think about like how we engage in terms of what website, search history, all of that. So there's a lot of data there. So Google knows how to target you and when and where to target your target audience. But the thing that's going to shift and the big advantage that that you can lean into now, or if you want to get ahead of it, is to invest heavily in first-party data. That's how we've been seeing a lot of big brands doing. And so investing in your patient management software, and ensuring that that data is clean, that it's up to date, as well as your automation platform, your marketing automation, appointment scheduler or appointment follow-up platform, whatever you're using for that, that the information's either connected or, again, up to date, and you're keeping that data clean.
Just to peel back the onion a little bit on that, Alex, sometimes even I get lost in what you're talking about. High level, what a cookie is the ability for browsers to track your behavior on websites. So many websites are free for you to use, but what you're actually trading is them tracking how you're using the software, the things you're typing into the software, and then that it previously was sold to platforms like Google and Facebook and advertising platforms. And so what's happening is they're blocking the ability to track browser activity. And so what Alex is saying is what's more important than ever is your own data. And so in your world, it's making sure that you are keeping a clean database, that you're getting the right information that you need, which would allow you to just communicate a little bit more effectively. E-commerce companies, this is a huge thing because they really want to showcase, you know, that red shoe that you were looking at the right time. And so it's affecting them a little bit more than it is this industry, but it doesn't negate the idea of making sure that your data is really clean.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And so apologies, I did definitely fly through that pretty quick. So yeah, first party data is actually the data that you're collecting on your patients. And zero party data is actually we won't have to go too far into that, but that's the data that they are giving you. So if they do fill out a form and hit submit, that's called zero party. But zero party, first party data, it's all the same thing. It's once they come to your website, it's the information that you're collecting on that patient or that person, that user. And then making sure that it is being collected in an organized manner, so that way it can be used. And obviously it can be used and fed into platforms like Google and Facebook in a HIPAA compliant way and manner to give you an edge when it comes to Google and Facebook ads, because third-party cookies are no longer a thing. What we need to do now is train that algorithm or that ad platform on the user and the patient that we are trying to target, so that it can best go out and find that person and show that ad to the right person. So this is why ensuring that data is clean and that we can then share it with these ad platforms in a HIPAA compliant way does just give us an edge in the ad world. And so how to collect that information, that data, these are just a few examples, but ensuring that you have form fills for maybe it's, downloadables or different lead magnets on the website. So just information that you're offering if you do want to offer it as a downloadable, or form fills for contact, for appointment bookings, and making sure that that information is also then going to the right place. Quizzes, again, asking for an email for the results for a quiz is common. Call tracking, website visits as well. We are collecting user data. We don't know the name and information of that person, but just even that user information can still help. So having Google Analytics set up is the answer, the action item from that bullet point. Appointments and patient intakes. So make sure that that is also ending up in the patient management software, and then just having that patient database be clean. Yeah. This is a big ethical conversation, which is, I think, maybe is being spoken about a little more, but still probably not enough. And I think it's just important for us to think about it when we're speaking about our own businesses and our own brand, is leaning into AI, whether it be chatbots or email or even just generating content. We've seen it on Facebook and social media platforms that AI has the power to manipulate psychological vulnerabilities, and will continue to do so at an accelerated rate. And so thinking about that, how that applies to your brand, and where and when you are actually manipulating these or vulnerabilities. And so just setting your own ethical boundaries and basically leaning into or rolling that out to every aspect of your brand and your business. There's a very gray area and a hard one to draw a firm box around, but just something to consider, which I don't know if really gets spoken about enough. It will improve, but currently there's a ton of biases in the algorithms. And so making sure that you're aware of that when you are generating images or videos or content. This is an example of like a real example of trying to generate a photo of a personal assistant versus a CEO versus a nurse. We're seeing very common themes around what Midjourney or Dolly or image generation platforms will spit out. The thing is we can say that the algorithm is biased, but really it's based on the content that's online. And so it's just emphasizing our own biases on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, just on that point, Alex, I think it's important, especially as we hit 2024, when you are creating content online, whether it's ads or using imaging in your social media, really think about your entire patient database. Think about the diversity. And part of what I'll say is understand the makeup of your area and make sure you're catering to what is around you. And so, we get asked this all the time. Sometimes, we tend to skew, and by we, I just mean humans, tend to skew who we are as people. We try to advertise or market or create messages to people that are very similar to us. Really understand the opportunity that's in your area, know your patient database, understand the opportunities, and then just make sure you're intentional when you're creating Instagram stories, when you're creating posts, that you are using a wide variety of whether it's age, it's gender, it's race. Make sure that you're speaking to everybody because I will tell you, people notice right now. So you want to make sure that you're being very intentional with what you're putting out.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. That is 100% right. Yeah, so that wraps up our talk. That's kind of the summary of the 3 trends that we're seeing. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. We can definitely take a moment to answer those. If you scan this QR code, you can download a free ChatGPT marketing prompt cheat sheet. So I highly recommend that you do so. It is a great takeaway and will help you a ton.
Yeah, and just as we were talking, our marketing team has just sent me a note. We had a question earlier about how do you stay on top of trends, and the newsletter that Natasha shared with us is later.com. So just the word later, LATER.com, is a social media management influencer platform. It has great information there as well.
Cool. Yeah, there's also actually a newsletter that I get called Decode, and this newsletter, it's just text form, but it every day it gives you the updates in the industry and what's happening. Not eye care specific, but it is also a good tool to use.
That newsletter is not specific to eye care. I would just ask that question.
Yeah, correct.
And also we just had a question about Instagram. Is it better to, should we just automatically be following people that follow us? My answer here is the same rules, that you would use in general. So if it is somebody that provides value to your account to follow, I would do that. Whether they're other local businesses, it's patients, those are the ones that I would be following. If it's other companies totally somewhere else in the world and they're just trying to get a follower count up, then I would be more selective. So really build like who you follow will also feed your social media feed. So you want to be pretty selective, but I think opening it up and making sure it's businesses in and around your area, it's patients, people in and around your area. That's who I would be following. And we're also asked for the email for the Canva toolbox. Why don't we go to the next slide there, Alex? Because I think we have an email address there as we are wrapping up this webinar. You could just send it to info@4ecps.com. We'll make sure it hits the right hands for that. So, aside from this picture, which is who wore it best, which happened to be just a few days ago, I think to me, the one on the right clearly is the winner. I do want to just highlight a couple things. It is 2024. This is typically the month that, business owners, practice owners are looking to really set themselves up for success as we head into the new year. If you are somebody that is looking for marketing advice, a marketing plan, please reach out to us on this email address. We will make sure that you are connected with someone that can do that for you. If you're a current client and you just want to make sure that you understand the full landscape of what's available, we want to make sure we have that right conversation with you. So thank you for taking the time and investing an hour of your day into learning. Alex, thank you very much. Brilliant as always. I appreciate that you're on my team and creating really cool stuff for us and our clients. And stay tuned for our next webinar. It'll happen in a few weeks. So thank you to everybody, and we hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Amazing. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.